Here is the part that matters right now. OpenAI did not just update a flagship model. It added smaller GPT-5.4 variants called Mini and Nano. That matters if you build with APIs, run lots of calls, or use agent-style systems where one task can trigger many model decisions. Smaller models usually mean lower cost and lower latency. But the real story is where OpenAI says these versions are still strong coding, tone use, multimodal reasoning, and high-volume subagant workloads. So the immediate viewer question is simple. Are these just cheaper fallbacks? Or are they meant to become the default engine for a lot of production traffic? The source frames them as optimized versions of GPT-5.4, not as separate experiments. That signals product intent. OpenAI wants the GPT-5.4 family to cover more workload tiers without forcing developers to leave the same model line. The logic here is practical. Many real systems do not need the biggest model on every step. An agent might classify a request, call a tool, inspect an image, write a small block of code, and only escalate hard reasoning when needed. In that kind of stack, smaller models are not a downgrade by default. They are the throughput layer. That is why OpenAI highlights high-volume API and subagant workloads. It is talking to teams that need many reliable decisions per minute, not just a single impressive answer. The interesting part is the specific workload mix. Coding interviews suggest these models are tuned for structured outputs and action-oriented tasks. Multimodal reasoning suggests they are also meant to handle mixed inputs, not just text routing. So the product story is less about a tiny model for simple checks, and more about a compact model that still fits modern software pipelines. There is also a packaging signal in the naming. By calling these GPT-5.4 Mini and Nano, OpenAI keeps them inside the same family instead of branding them as a different tier with different expectations. That usually means the company wants developers to think in deployment profiles, not in disconnected model identities. Same family, different operating points, faster, smaller, likely cheaper, but still aligned with the same broad product direction. That matters because model families become easier to swap into an application when the naming and positioning stay consistent. It reduces friction for teams deciding when to use a lighter model. At the same time, the source gives us no benchmark detail in this pack, so we should be careful. We know the intended strengths. We do not yet know the exact size of the trade-offs. The signal is clear. The proof will come from latency, price, tool reliability, and error rates in production. If this launch works, the biggest impact may be invisible to end users. It could show up in the software layer around them. Faster background agents, cheaper moderation or classification passes, more to using assistants that can afford to think in smaller steps, more coding systems that use a lightweight model for repeated edits, checks, or tool orchestration. That fits the source language about high-volume workloads and subagants. It points to scale economics, not just chatbot quality. And that is a meaningful shift in how frontier model companies package value. The headline model still matters for hard tasks, but the smaller variants may drive the actual usage curve because they unlock frequency. If Mini and Nano are good enough on the common path, they could become the default choice for much of the stack, with the largest model reserved for escalation. That is the real operational tension in this release. So here is the clean red. The signal is that OpenAI is extending GPT-5.4 for downward for speed sensitive, volume heavy, action oriented work. The company is explicitly pointing at coding, tool use, multimodal reasoning, and subagant systems. That is not random wording. It maps to where modern AI products actually spend compute. The noise is anything we assume beyond that. We do not yet have enough in this source pack to say how close mini or nano get to the full model, what the pricing curve looks like, or which tasks break first under compression. Those details decide whether this is a narrow infrastructure release or a major default for builders. For now, the useful takeaway is simple. OpenAI is treating smaller models as first-class production components inside the same family, not just budget options. That changes deployment strategy even before the benchmark charts arrive.